Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Meyerhofer, Chief Sales Officer with Xometry, and welcome to Manufacturing Day. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and as we all celebrate the industry we love. We have so much to acknowledge as a community. Today, manufacturing is the backbone of our global economy. It fuels the innovation that propels humanity forward, and it is growing. Employment in our industry now exceeds pre-pandemic levels. What's more, manufacturing today provides immeasurable leadership and entrepreneurial opportunities, especially and increasingly for women and other underrepresented communities. Women make up 30% of the workforce, the highest percentage ever, and growing. And as many manufacturing executive will tell you, the more inclusive our industry, the stronger the innovation and the better the output. Even more, we're seeing record numbers of companies reshoring and nearshoring their operations. They've been propelled in part by lingering supply chain issues, legislation like the CHIPS Plus Act that incentivizes domestic manufacturing, and a growing cultural chorus amongst consumers, business leaders, and legislators alike to make it in America as a means to protect and accelerate our economic and natural security interest. I've spent the majority of my career in manufacturing, and I've never been so proud of how far we've come. Today's manufacturing is not the same industry it was a generation or even a half generation ago. Public perception of manufacturing is slowly but surely shifting away from that antiquated industry that it was once known as, a high-tech to a high-tech providing well-paying jobs. We're seeing the emergence of public-private partnerships, and they're important because they help ensure that the next cohort of engineers, technicians, and machinists have the required skills and training they need to succeed. And we're seeing small and medium manufacturers, which make up the vast majority of our industry, embrace digital tools, automation to succeed and grow their business without sacrificing talent. Just 2 weeks ago, we partnered with Forbes and Zogby to poll more than 150 CEOs. The findings? Talent. Talent is the number one tool CEOs say they have at their disposal to help overcome supply chain hurdles. Here's what that survey, the largest of its kind, found. 70% of CEOs said they are investing in employees. 66% are investing in automation and workflow operations. And 63% are embracing emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. Manufacturers are resilient, innovative, and tenacious. And that's why I'm extremely proud to be here with you today. We have an exciting program. Amy Feldman, the senior editor of Forbes, will moderate a discussion with Allison, the president of Women in Manufacturing Association, Jeremy Zogby of Zogby Strategies, the nationally recognized polling firm, and my boss, Randy Altschuler, the CEO of Xometry. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today and leading this discussion.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. I just want to say how honored I am to introduce you. You have regularly spotlighted industrial innovation and what it means to our economy and raising awareness, addressing the challenges that we face and really spotlighting solutions. And so we're so thankful that you've agreed to give your time and moderate this discussion. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Hi, everyone. And I'm delighted to be here to talk about the survey that the three of us did together. I believe that Jeremy is going to come on with me first to talk a bit about the findings so that we can kind of go through what the poll showed. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Amy, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So I want to start with the thing that jumped out at us about the poll, which was just the vast number of manufacturers. I believe it was 87% who said that they were going to hike prices in 2023, which, as inflation is on everybody's minds, is obviously a very important finding. I wanted to hear what you thought about that and kind of dig into some of the details of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a high number, right? 87%, almost 9 of 10, and on the surface that sounds shocking, but the fact of the matter is that's what's been happening over the past year. So, I mean, in order to keep up with the rate of inflation, everything else has had to see price increases. Well, why wouldn't manufacturers? I mean, they're supplying us with our goods and our services. So the number is high because usually in polls we don't see 90% think or believe this, but this is the reality on the ground, and it makes perfect sense in this context where things are going up in prices.
And how does that sort of align with the majority also said that they expect a recession or an economic downturn over the next year? How do those two things sort of come together?
Well, I mean, that's just kind of the outlook. I've been tracking this for quite a time, and I mean, over 10 years. And one could say that perhaps, not perhaps, the media and a lot of the messaging coming from the media is more gloomy. So, are they? One has to wonder: is it coming from that? Is it coming from the perception? I mean, obviously, yes, there are these supply chain shocks. Yes, there's inflation, but in the last couple of years, and more so the last year, the sense from many media outlets has turned kind of gloomy. So that's my immediate reaction. But I'm sure as we're going to delve into manufacturers, by nature, innovators, providers, have have taken this environment, and I think that they've taken lemons and they made lemonade with it. And we'll get into some of those numbers and how they're preparing and innovating.
Let's talk a bit about that. I mean, we sort of asked people about automation, about robotics, about whether they were reshoring and nearshoring. Talk a bit about what the survey found.
Yeah. So I mean, when I went through all of this data, and this is 100 pages of data, I saw just as much as I saw the price hikes and the concern about supply chain shock. I saw that front and center. But what else jumped out at me was the theme of resilience and innovation. And so, really, the best numbers that encapsulate that, Kathleen talked about in the intro, and you've alluded to, that the number one thing that manufacturers are investing in is their workforce. Of course, the job market is a lot of labor available, and in order to entice them, raising wages, offering packages, those are some of the things that I think we're seeing when it comes to investing in their workforce and just making a better, place for workers. But even just as big as that, so 70% of manufacturing CEOs say they're doing that. But just as big as that number, 66% of them are investing in automation. 63% of them are investing in artificial intelligence, and 42% of them are investing in robotics. So, what that tells us is that they're positioning themselves for, of course, the general sentiment is that, yeah, there probably will be another supply chain shock. Yeah, inflation is probably going to stay with us. It's probably not transitory. But what can we do now so that we're prepared for when another shock comes? And this is what they're doing, and they're being very proactive and they're being very innovative.
That's interesting, and I think that's a really good point. I think to bring the rest of our panel back If we can get Randy and Allison to come back on, I think we can all have a lot to talk about from this. Hi, everyone. So I think, Randy, I want to start with you because we've just brought up some of the issues, both on the inflation and supply chain side and also on the technology side. I'm curious what you're seeing at Xometry and among your customers, and what you're hearing out in the field.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, despite all the gloom and doom that Jeremy referenced, you're hearing in the media, I don't think the level of innovation in terms of hardware has ever been bigger than it is today. And at Xometry, we're fortunate enough to see not only what large corporations are doing, but we've got hosts of smaller startups, from just a couple of engineers that are still in graduate school to folks that have raised a lot of money in the private market that are now creating next generation hardware, whether it's in space or if it's medical devices or it's devices that are focused on climate change. So there's this huge demand out there from those folks, and they're trying to navigate this somewhat scary environment when they're hearing about supply chain issues. You've got the lockdowns in certain countries, particularly in China, which cause delays, and then shortages. There's weather issues in various places. So I think there is huge demand, and I think it's almost the extent that it's increasing demand, but figuring out the best way to actually fulfill your needs and ensuring that it's reliable and you've got that surety that's so important. I think that's the thing that we're seeing more and more customers saying, hey, I need to have multiple options here. I'm not going to go, maybe historically I've only gone to Asia. How do I hedge my bet now with onshoring some of that? Or even here domestically, I've usually single sourced this. How do I use multiple suppliers? And that's certainly a growing trend.
That's interesting. I mean, and that raises this whole point of the reshoring and nearshoring. And I found it interesting in the survey that it felt very mixed. There were some people were reshoring, some people were nearshoring, but it wasn't overwhelmingly yes or no. I wonder if that sort of jibes with what you're seeing and what you might expect to see going forward.
Yeah, I don't think it's a wave yet towards reshoring or people moving, in great numbers. I think, look, part of the problem is here in the United States is that we need to continue to grow our labor force. And Jeremy, talked about that in the polling results. I mean, we have an aging manufacturing workforce here in the United States. These are great jobs, high-paying jobs, high-tech jobs, yet we don't have enough people who want to have these jobs. So we need to train more. We need to embrace that as a great career path for our children and for others in our country. And I think also embracing technology and automation goes hand in hand with that. So the more that here domestically, that becomes a viable option where you're decreasing cost, you're increasing throughput and speed to market, I think that will push that trend towards onshoring or reshoring. But you got to prove it. At the end of the day, the customer needs their goods at a certain price and at a certain time, irrespective of how they feel about what should be done domestically or internationally. They're business people, and so we've got to make it easier. I'm speaking here as an American. We've got to make it easier for them to do that right here.
That's interesting.
If I could just add,
please, Jeremy.
I'm sorry. We pollsters, we do this all the time. We find different ways to slice and dice the data. And, when you look at offshoring and reshoring isolated, the numbers aren't big. But what happens when, in the question when we said, which of the following are you doing? Are you offshoring or are you reshoring? Are you nearshoring? When you combine reshoring and nearshoring, 64% of CEOs say that they're either reshoring or nearshoring. So this is tying back to what Randy said. At the end of the day, manufacturing CEOs just want to provide for their customer. This is much different from the political landscape where, people are, can't really agree on much, but we can see so much agreement here because at the end of the day, that's what CEOs are. They want to provide for their customers, and this could very well be where it's headed, and it makes sense in the context of inflation and diversifying to deal with a future supply chain shock. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and if I can just throw in
That
one more
is
thing, not to
interesting.
elongate our conversation too much, but just again on this topic of reshoring and nearshoring, I think the estimate I saw in the news today was an estimated 350,000 new jobs are going to be created through all of these recent reshoring, nearshoring efforts. So it's all very interconnected because we're creating more and more jobs, all of these opportunities and openings, yet we've got to find that talent to fill those opportunities and openings. Because unless we do that, unless we find the people power and the talent power, we have to turn to automation, and manufacturers are turning to automation to then reduce their inability to be able to deliver to customers.
So talk to me a bit about the talent. And I found it interesting, the stat that Kathy brought up in the intro, that 30% of women are now working in manufacturing jobs are now filled 30% by women, which is at its peak. And I'm sort of curious how those two trends are coming together, the use of technology and the increase of women in the workforce in manufacturing. And I wondered if you could talk to that a bit.
Sure. So, when I started the Women in Manufacturing Association more than a decade ago, the women made up about 27% of the workforce. Present day, we are near 30% of the workforce. In manufacturing, we do make up half the workforce generally. And interestingly, just this past Monday, the U.S. Census Bureau came out with a new report that showed some additional great gains for women in manufacturing. So in different age segments in particular, huge jumps that have happened just in the last decade for women in manufacturing careers. So we know more and more women are getting into manufacturing. We as an organization are not only committed to getting to a larger percentage of equity in manufacturing, but I think even more important than that is getting more women to rise and advance in manufacturing so that we can change companies and cultures and policies to help more and more manufacturers become, better and more inclusive organizations for the potential workforce and job seekers. So we see huge improvement. I think there's lots of things driving that. I think marketing and messaging and changing some of those myths that were around what does modern manufacturing looks like has definitely helped. I think open awareness. I think as well, if you look at compensation, it was mentioned earlier, manufacturing pays well. So us promoting that, lots of different companies themselves promoting it as they recruit definitely helps. Automation is a key driver as well. New skills, new types of positions created. And then lastly, I think doing some great things that companies are and that we as a society have done with focusing on STEM and STEAM programs to help introduce kids at an earlier age to these opportunities in manufacturing careers and science and technology careers.
That's interesting. That's interesting. On the not training issues, I do want to go back to some of the supply chain stuff. One of the things in the poll that I also thought was interesting is that more executives had said that last year was a worse year for supply chain issues than this year has been. And I was sort of curious to dig into that a little bit, especially in light of some of the stories that have come out recently that there's been inventory stockpiling, and you can see it at Nike and some other places. And I'm sort of curious how that jives with kind of what you're seeing out in the field, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, and here's the thing, we live in a truly global supply chain. Even if you're doing all of your manufacturing domestically here in the United States, your chips, your other things may be coming from overseas. So when we saw these, lockdowns in every country treated it differently, and obviously China has sort of taken things to a whole nother level, by shutting things down, you then created all this supply chain backup and shortages, and nobody, because electronics are everywhere. Everything is infused with that. Is free of that. So that's certainly gotten better this year. There've been more lockdowns, as the last couple, quarters. So it sort of reared its head more, but last year was definitely dramatic. That said, I think that was definitely an alarm bell to folks in other parts of the world that, hey, if I'm getting, my chips, and I go back to the CHIPS Act, which I do think is sort of an extraordinary thing for us here in the United States. If I'm totally reliant on international for that, and they may have a different national policy when it comes to addressing a pandemic or other issues, geopolitical problems, etc. I need that to be here. I think that has been a wake-up call, and I think as companies, particularly that CHIPS Act won't impact all of us. And Micron just announced a couple of days ago a huge investment in upstate New York, and so those sort of things not only create jobs here in the United States, they not only help our national security, but also they ensure that if there are other, because we'll continue to have an international supply chain, but if that happens, that won't prevent domestic customers or OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, from actually getting their goods to market. So it's not, all these pieces play together. And if anything good has come from a pandemic, it's highlighting the weaknesses and the fact that these local resilience supply chains, whether it's electronics or physical or manufacturing parts, etc., mechanical parts, that all is interlinked, and we need to take care of that collectively, and probably have policies around that, and then also build these sort of partnerships on a public and private basis too.
That's interesting. And that Micron deal was super interesting, especially as somebody here in New York, to sort of see what might happen upstate in an area that has sort of, I guess, tried to have a little manufacturing policy for many years, and sort of see it maybe finally come to fruition. I see you smiling there.
And what was interesting, just going back to what Allison was saying about manufacturing and sort of changing the way it looks, they noted that the average compensation there is going to be over $100,000. So these are great jobs. There's tons of jobs. So it's a huge opportunity. And I did want to, if you think about easy wins, if there are any such things as easy wins, if women make 50% of our workforce and they're only at 30% in manufacturing, and we know that we have a gap in the number of people in manufacturing, as quickly as we can fill the gap, that is going to pay back in all sorts of different ways. It will accelerate innovation for companies. It will broaden our manufacturing base. I mean, it has so many knock-on effects. So math is just so simple to see. Women should be, at equal in all these different areas. You see similar problems in computer science, etc. It's in all of our best goods, regardless of gender, et cetera, or political, or whatever. If we get to those rightful numbers as soon as possible, it will be a huge payback.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Allison, do you have anything to add to that on the sort of training and diversifying the workforce issue?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that. Obviously, women can be the best solution to fill all of these open positions, or be one of those really effective solutions for filling all of the open positions that we have. I think manufacturing companies have to do a few things. So I think that, we as an industry, and I think companies individually, need to do a better job of highlighting their female talent. We look at recruiting teams that go out to recruit individuals, and they need to have individuals that, speak to the vast majority of people that are looking for positions. So having diverse recruiting teams looking at sharing the stories of their leading females to inspire others and to showcase that women are welcome here. I think also focusing on, what these companies are doing well beyond just what they're manufacturing. Job seekers present day care about other things that rather than just compensation. Millennials, that's not the top thing they're looking for. They care about sustainability. They care about what are the ethics and what is the culture like at a company. So companies being mindful of those things as they're looking to recruit millennial women and men and lots of other individuals into manufacturing. And then flexibility is a huge thing. As we've done surveys ourselves, including the one that we've done with Xometry, we know that workplace flexibility is critically important for all job seekers present day. So I think if companies want to recruit more women, they've got to be looking at what are their workplace policies. Do they offer flexibility? Do they have opportunities for women to work unique and maybe some creative ways and schedules and shifts, so that they can still be part of that great manufacturing organization, but also perhaps, take care of some personal or family needs.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So I think we're coming closer to the end. I want to do sort of a round for everyone. I'm sort of want to go back to the poll, and I'm curious to hear from each of you one thing that you found the most interesting out of the poll, something you didn't expect, or that confirmed something that you thought. And also, now that a month or so has passed since we've done it, is there something that you wish that we had polled that you wish we kind of knew about? Maybe Jeremy, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Wow. To me, the theme innovation preparation. That amidst like I've already said, the looming, any looming sense of recession or inflation continuing, these folks didn't skip a beat. They look to how can we innovate, how can we prepare ourselves so that we don't miss another beat. And I'm sorry, I'm my background as a history teacher, and the first thing I think of when I say that is you go to the story of human history. And it's those who went out into the unknown that largely drove history. The merchants, the merchant class, for example, the traders. And here we are in 2022. More women are coming into the world of manufacturing. Certainly, they're more and more making their way to the upper levels. And here we are at a point where manufacturing executives, both men and women, are playing that role once again. And I think this data just really highlights that amazingly.
That's really interesting. Allison, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I was most excited to see the company's CEOs, respondents talking about their investments in automation. I think automation, we know it is, good for manufacturing companies, for their productivity, for their profitability, for us to stay competitive globally. And I think seeing them talking about investing in automation, because not only is it, again, great in all those other respects, but it also creates a whole new different type of slew of different roles and responsibilities, and as well positions that women can fill, that individuals who maybe once wouldn't have fit or been interested in manufacturing can now perhaps find a fit with, because there's these new types of roles and responsibilities created. So I think that was my biggest takeaway.
That's interesting. Randy, what about you?
The theme of resilience. Manufacturing has built the world as we know it today, and it will build our future. So that resilience and the amazing thing, particularly when you think about manufacturing here in the United States, it's not one mega company. It's not a bunch of giant corporations. It's hundreds of thousands of small manufacturers spread out across our country, and they play such an important role in their communities. I mean, they're an important voice there. They're helping promote innovation. They're creating that resiliency. They're creating that security. So I think that theme and celebrating that theme, and also celebrating those hundreds of thousands of small manufacturers that are really the bedrock of American manufacturing and, frankly, global manufacturing, that's important and exciting.
Fantastic. I think that theme of resilience is a good one to end on. I want to thank everybody for coming. Randy, Jeremy, Allison, it's been a great discussion. And then I want to turn it back to Kathy for some final remarks.
Thank you, Amy. What a great conversation. I appreciate all of you, Amy, Allison, Jeremy, and Randy. I especially love the twin themes of resilience and perseverance. As Randy said, we're seeing more innovation today, both in terms of the products and in how manufacturers are responding. And it's really great to see. So thank you again all for joining us today. Video of this conversation will be available on demand at live-dot-xometry.com later this afternoon. Have a wonderful manufacturing day. I'm Kathy Meierhofer, and we'll see you here again soon.